Eat the Shaqalicious slam when you hear a player better than prime Steph Curry. Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Magic Johnson, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal.
Steph is the GOAT. Nobody's going to beat the best player in the world, Steph Curry.
Best player in the world? Steph Curry's the best player in the world?
Yeah, by far.
It sounds crazy at first because this isn't just Shaq praising Stephen Curry. This is him putting Steph over Michael Jordan, over LeBron James, over every version of dominance we've ever seen, including himself. And the easy reaction is to laugh it off or call it recency bias. But this isn't really about stats or rings. It's about something the NBA has never fully agreed on. It's about what greatest actually means. Once we answer that question, then you'll see why it's debatable. When Shaq calls Steph Curry the GOAT, he's not following the same rules everyone else is using. So first, what rules do people generally follow? Championships, finals MVPs, two-way dominance, the ability to control every aspect of the game when it matters most. That's why names like Michael Jordan and LeBron James always sit at the top, because they check every single one of those boxes, obviously. But Steph doesn't fit that mold. He isn't big and strong, and he's not locking up the opposing team's best player every night. His resume, while elite, doesn't completely separate him from the rest of the all-time greats. And that's exactly why Shaq's take sounds wrong. Because if you're using that definition of greatness, Steph Curry simply doesn't win. What Shaq is doing is something different. He, like Michael Jordan, is questioning the definition itself.
First of all, you're never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. Jack and Tiger never played against each other. They never played in the same tournament. They never played with the same equipment. They never played with the same, length of golf course. I never played against Will Chamberlain. I never played against, Jerry West. To now say that, one's greater than the other is being a little bit unfair.
There's no doubt that modern basketball is quite different from the past era. So, Shaq's asking whether greatness is really just about dominance in the traditional sense, or if it can be something else entirely. Because Steph doesn't dominate the game the way Jordan did, and he doesn't control it the way LeBron does. But what he does instead might be even harder to measure. This isn't a highlight of the 2017 Warriors. This is a small sample size of how one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen became second priority to Steph Curry. You see, you don't ignore a player like Durant unless someone else on the floor is breaking the entire structure of your defense. And that something else is Steph. The moment he crosses half court, everyone's already scared and sends two defenders his direction. And suddenly, the entire floor transforms. Coach Steve Kerr has a name for this.
That organized chaos that he creates, it's a great thing for our team. But there's only one player that can do that, and he wears number 30.
The chaos, the spacing, the movement, all of it starts with Steph's presence. Now, add that to this description from Kobe.
And when a player has the skills and has trained himself to have the skills to be able to shoot, dribble, left, right, etc., and then you mix that with this calmness and poise, then you have a serious problem on your hands.
Kobe Bryant is describing the kind of skill that removes your options as a defender. Steph can shoot from anywhere, off the dribble, off the catch, moving left, moving right, and he does it with a level of composure that never speeds up. At a certain point, it stops being about what he's doing and starts being about what defenders think he might do. That's the fear factor. It's not just that he can hit the shot, it's that everyone on the floor expects him to, and this constant fear weakens the opponent. Basically, there are two things that weaken Steph Curry's GOAT argument. The first is that he's not a good defender. But the fear of Curry on the offense alone is why the 2016 Warriors had a record-breaking 73-9 season. Their defense wasn't bad, but the offensive prowess was so much that opponents were often too tired by the time they were on the offensive. Now, here's Shaq talking about the second thing.
The only thing Steph Curry has not done that those other guys have done is the finishing dunk. Think about what I'm saying. Like all the other guys, they have a finishing dunk play, but Steph Curry behind that line is the impact is similar to a finishing dunk. But
for most all-time greats, dominance shows up at the rim, through physical force, through plays that feel final and undeniable. What Steph does from behind the three-point line creates that same effect. You can say it's the modern version of that same threat. And if greatness is about controlling the outcome at the highest level, then you have to at least consider the possibility that Steph Curry is doing it in a way we've never seen before. But all this only makes sense if we modernize our criteria for what it means to be the greatest. Because the moment you bring the conversation back to the traditional definition of greatness, it all falls apart. Not completely though, not enough to remove him from the conversation, but enough to make you hesitate before putting him at the very top, even when you realize that he's the only one that can do this.
He gets held and grabbed more than anybody in the league, and because the officials are looking a lot at on the ball traffic, they don't see everything that's going on.
Steph just walked into the vomitory pretending he's going to the locker room to see if Colin Sexton was going to follow him.
He did.
But let's start with the resume. 4 championships is elite, no question, but it doesn't separate him the way 6 did for Michael Jordan. The finals MVP count doesn't stack up the same way either. And when you compare total statistical dominance across categories, he doesn't control the game on both ends of the floor like LeBron did for 2 decades. If greatness is about checking every box, Steph leaves a few open. Then there's the system argument because Steph has played inside one of the most perfectly constructed environments the league has ever seen. Alongside Klay Thompson spacing the floor, Draymond Green, and at one point Kevin Durant, but LeBron has been part of super teams and MJ played with several Hall of Famers. A more serious argument is the fact that Steph has never been known as a dominant defender. Earlier in his career, teams actively targeted him in switches, trying to exploit that gap. Compared to players like Jordan or LeBron who could take over a game on both ends, Steph's impact leans heavily to one side. And for some people, that alone disqualifies him from being the greatest. But the most complicated part of this entire conversation might be the years with Durant, because Durant won Finals MVP and seemed to take over scoring duties in critical moments. And while Steph's gravity was still shaping everything behind the scenes, the spotlight didn't always land on him like it should for a clear-cut GOAT. So now you're left with a split picture. On one side, you have a player who changed the geometry of basketball and forced defenses into impossible decisions. On the other, you have a resume that doesn't fully separate and a style of dominance that doesn't fit the traditional mold. So at this point, the argument stops being about Stephen Curry and starts becoming about what greatest actually means. For years, the answer felt simple. The greatest player is the one who dominates the most, wins the most, controls every aspect of the game, and leaves no room for debate. He is the one that doesn't just beat you, but overwhelms you, physically, mentally, and statistically. Steph doesn't fit into that framework, but we all know the game has changed, and we all know what we've been witnessing for over a decade now.
I believe that the greatest fear factor that exists in the NBA is Steph Curry.
Even if you shift the definition slightly, if you stop looking only at dominance and start looking at impact, then you have to include Steph, because there are 2 things that are undebatable about Steph. The fact that he changed the geometry of the game like no other, and that he's the greatest shooter ever. No one else can say that about the game or any skill. So, at the end of the day, even if we don't think Shaq is totally right about Steph Curry as the GOAT, at least he has to be in the convo.
You know, when you're talking about that GOAT conversation, I'm saying it here on the Pat McAfee show, got to put Steph Curry in there.
Steph Curry doesn't check every traditional GOAT box, so if that's your definition of greatness, then the answer is already decided. But the truth is that Steph Curry checks boxes that didn't even exist before him. He changed how the game is played, how defenses operate, and how players are developed at every level. He didn't just master basketball, he reshaped it. So when Shaq calls Steph Curry the GOAT, he's not ignoring history. He's challenging how we measure it. And that's why he's totally right. So, do you agree that we need to update our criteria for the GOAT? Well, let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, watch what NBA players say about Steph Curry's first Olympics run next.